It's Timmy Super Crash here. I just want to do a quick tire review on some of the tires I've used and what I like about them and what I don't like. Also, I've gone through quite a few different CA glues, and I'm going to show you which ones are my favorite and why, how I prep and clean my tires and do repairs as well. So let's get started. So some of the CA glues I've used so far are the BSI Super Gold. It's not really a tire glue, but it's a good CA glue. I've used the BSI Ultra Cure, which is a tire glue. AK Black Widow, which is rubber infused CA glue with rubber particles in it. It's a black CA glue. Same with the BSI IC2000. I'll usually hit them with a little bit of BSI Instaset as well. And we clean and prep the tires with 99% isopropyl alcohol. I also will clean with a toothbrush, a file, and usually an air compressor as well. You don't need an air compressor, but it definitely helps get some sand and particles out of the bead if there's some stuff in there. Helps remove it pretty easily. So I did a controlled test with a ripped up tire that I had. And I used all the glues to test. I cut up these little pieces, all very similar size, and I glued them all together, let them cure up. And they all held pretty good. There was two glues that kind of stood out amongst the others that I definitely prefer to use, and I'll get into that later on in the video. So let's get started here. So we're going to go with the original heavy-duty Proline Badland beadlocks. Now I have these. I've had these for quite a while. These ones have had half of the screws removed to lighten them up a little bit. They're still quite heavy. Everybody knows about these wheels and tires. Now these, I don't prefer to run these guys. These are very heavy tires. They're very durable, so I'm probably gonna catch some shit for this because I know a lot of guys do like them. It's a motocross tire design, very hard rubber, very heavy wheel, especially with all this steel in here, with all the screws. These come in with half of the screws removed, mind you, at about 832 grams. Now I don't prefer to use these guys just because they are so heavy. They don't have a lot of air control. It's a lot of rotational mass. You end up breaking more stuff, no air control, and just not my favorite tire at all. Very hard rubber, not pliable. So definitely not one of my favorites. It is a very durable tire, but definitely not a tire I generally use too often. I know a lot of guys do love them. Maybe for certain applications they're good. For me, not so much. So I'm just going to make some space on the table here. Next tire we'll get into here is the DeBoot backflips. I absolutely love these tires. Now this rubber is a very soft rubber compound. There's a big rubber profile around the wheel. They're just around around 8 inches approximately. They have a metal insert inside the wheel. The wheels themselves are very tough. I haven't broken too many wheels. I have ripped quite a few of these tires. Mind you, it is a motocross tire design. Now, where these are really good is they have a lot of air control. They have good driving control. They handle very well, but the rubber is very soft. So if you're driving on sharp stuff, guys, you will rip these tires. As you can see here, we're gonna do a repair on this gash here. I've ripped 2 or 3 of these tires so far in a very similar fashion. Good control, good air control, good ground control, very soft, so don't drive in sharp areas. And you have to be in mind that these tires have a different offset. So if you're riding them on your XMAXX, you might want to have some axle extensions on or some wider stub axles, just because the offset is a little different. So they're going to be kind of pushed in a little bit. So you want something to offset that so you don't lose any steering. So really good tire. Definitely one of my top favorites. Okay. Next tire here. Let's weigh these ones just so you guys get a weight on them. So we're around 610, 611 grams per tire and wheel for the DeBoot backflips. Next tire and wheel, we're going to go with the DuraTrax 6 packs. You all know of these ones. Now these are a good value tire and wheel. They're very cost effective for what they are. My main problem with these is you got to make sure they're glued up, guys. Make sure if you're running these the night before, make sure they're really glued up nicely, because I have thrown a bead on these quite often and blown the tire right off the wheel quite a few times. Okay, I have 2 down there on the ground, as you can see, that I've blown the foam right out. And but that being said, they handle very well. They are a belted tire. The wheels are a little heavier. Let's get a weight on these guys. So we're at 761, so a bit heavier of a wheel and tire combo, but they do have good ground control. And if you're running them on a high power rig, they will still have some air control with them. Wheels, I have broken a few wheels with these. I've cracked some pretty bad. They are a heavier plastic in the wheel. They're quite thick, and obviously heavy. You can see by the weight there. So it's a decent tire for the money. They do handle really good. But be aware of some of the shortcomings with that tire. Make sure they're glued up and try not to run them on cold days, or else you will crack these wheels. Another one of my favorite tires here is the Traxxas Sledgehammer wheels and tires, or tires. These are about 8.5 inches in height. Big tire profile for the wheel. Also kind of a motocross design. These wheels are very soft and pliable. I have broken quite a few of these wheels, cracked them up, but I'll still run them even cracked. And one thing you got to be in mind of, because the tire is so soft, you got to make sure to keep these tires glued, because you'll blow beads on these wheels quite often. So every night before I'm about to run these, I will make sure they're all glued up, and I glue these almost daily if I'm running them. I don't generally run these on a high power rig like my 1100 kV rigs. These are more for stock rigs that I tend to run them on. They do have the smaller 12 mil through hole. So generally I just run them on my stock XMAXX, stockish XMAXX. A lot of air control. They're a little bit bouncy on ground handling, just because there is a lot of tire here, but they do absorb a lot of impact. They're very cushy, very pliable, really killer air control, but just make sure they're glued up. Wheels are strong, fairly strong, especially for a stock wheel and tire. So definitely favorite go-to tire for a stockish rig. Absolutely love this wheel and tire combo. Let's get a weight for you guys. So 670 grams ish for the wheel and tire for the Sledgehammers. Okay. Next up is the Traxxas stock Traxxas XRT tire. This is more of a hard pack running tire. It is a directional tire as well. You know, it's a smaller wheel and tire combo. This is about just over 7.5 inches. Let's get the weight on these ones. Pretty light. I think it's the lightest tire that we're gonna have at 595 ish. So these ones don't have a ton of air control, especially on a stockish rig, but they're a ton of fun. Keep them glued up. They will come off the bead, but as long as you keep these glued up, they should run pretty strong. They are a little bit stiffer of a tire. It feels like the foam's a little bit stiffer, and the rubber itself is a little bit stiffer, but it's still pliable. Here you go. Yeah, the size 7.4 in height. And the wheels have been fairly durable. They're fairly flexible, similar to the Sledgehammers. Traxxas generally have a fairly flexible wheel. So I do like these a lot. These are really fun in the skate park. On hard pack surfaces, these are a really fun tire, especially concrete. They're super fun to drive on concrete. They handle very well if you're on hard pack. So very fun tire, not a ton of air control, but still a very fun tire to run, especially if you're on a stockish rig. I haven't tried them on my high power rigs yet. I do have to give it a whirl and just see what happens, but definitely a lot of control on harder pack surfaces. One of my other favorite tires that I don't actually have here right now, because I've given them to a friend, is the stock XMAXX tire and wheel combos. I really like the stock XMAXX tire and wheels. They actually handle quite well for what they are, and the wheels are very durable. The pair that I lent out to a friend, they actually haven't broken. They're the original wheel and tire that I've owned since day one, and the wheels are still not cracked, and they've seen a lot of abuse. My favorite tire and wheel combo right now is the Proline MX57 with the new version of the Badland tires on them. Now this is a much softer version of the Badland tires on these MX57 wheels. Much lighter wheel and tire combo. Let's get a weight for you guys here. So we're looking at about 685 grams versus about almost 900 grams for the original Badland wheel and tires. Now these are, I really like the way they've constructed these. These wheels are super tough. I haven't broken any yet, and I've bashed them pretty hard. The rubber, the way they put them on the beads, don't come off easy. They do have fairly decent air control. Now it has a much smaller rubber profile, so they're not as cushy as, say, the DeBoots or the Sledgehammers or some of the other tires out there. But I love the durability, man. I love not having to replace wheels and having them fly off the rims when I'm doing backflips and things like that. They seem to stay off even if you do break a bead. They seem to hold up for the day. Anything that's not bead locked, I like to just make sure to go around and keep them glued up so I don't have any problems. And I usually have a few spares in the truck when I'm running as well. So definitely my favorite tire and wheel combo right now is the Proline MX57, just because its durability. I love the air control with the DeBoots. Just keep in mind the offset is a little different with the DeBoots, and they're softer, okay? Another tire and wheel combo that I've run is I've also run the Scorpions. Now the wheels are a little bit brittle on those, so you don't want to run them on cold days. I have ripped the rubber off the wheel in the Scorpions. It's a very tall tire and wheel combo, and it's also kind of like the Proline in the low profile, a little bit less rubber on the wheel. The Scorpions are not my favorite tire and wheel. They're fairly heavy as well. They're around 800 grams ish, you know, give or take, whatever. But just definitely not my favorite tire and wheel for the price. I think I would go with the set of 6 packs instead of the Scorpions if it was me, but that's just my preference. Okay, guys, now let's get into doing some cleaning. Let's get into some cleaning stuff here, guys. So the way I like to prep my tires, we're gonna fix this DeBoot here that's ripped. Where are we here? So what I like to do is I take a microfiber towel. I don't like using shop towels just because they leave too much debris behind and they rip up when you're scrubbing the tire. So make sure that you use a clean microfiber towel. You don't want to have anything that has any oil or anything on it. You want to make sure it's clean. Now these aren't clean, but they're clean from oil, so I'm going to reuse these. I've only used these to clean my tires, and generally I'll have sets that I just use on tires only and make sure I don't get oil on them. So I just section off a microfiber towel into 4 pieces, and then I'll use one for scrubbing and one for drying and wiping off the CA glue. It's funny, I got particle on it. You just gotta, when you cut them, make sure you defluff the edges, and that will get rid of any loose particles. You might have a few, but it's definitely better than using paper towel, okay? So what I'll do is, here, let's just do it, okay? So I'll show you. So what we'll do is we'll take the microfiber towel, soak it in a bit of isopropyl alcohol, then the 99% evaporates, so that's what you want to use, guys, because you don't want to have any liquid in here while we're gluing them. Now I'll get right into the rip or in the bead if it's a broken bead on the wheel. You're trying to get right in there, clean it right out. Now I have a compressor, so I like to blow it out. If you don't have to have a compressor, and you can get in there and clean it with a toothbrush if you need to, depending on how dirty it is. There's a little bit of a bead there, so I'll get in there. Generally, wherever I can fit the glue tip is where I'm going to glue. If it's big enough to fit the glue tip in, I'll glue it. So I'll clean that out. If it's, you know, usually I'll rough it up a little bit with a diamond file as well. I'll just get this in here, rough it up a little bit, just like this. And if it's in the bead, I'll do the same thing. We'll find another tire to glue with that's in the bead. You know, if there's a crack, see, these are actually pretty good for, they don't break beads too often. We'll just fix this gash in it, and I'll find another one to do the bead with. But basically I'll get this in the bead and just give it a little scrape, not too much, not enough to damage anything, but just enough to give it a little bit of roughage, okay? Then what I'll do usually is blow it out with the air compressor. Now you can skip this step, you don't have to do this. Go around the bead and give it a little blowout. And then also the next step, you don't have to do this either, but this is just the way I do it, guys. You don't have to do it this way, and you might have a better way, and I might be stupid for doing it the way I'm doing it. I'm just doing it the way it's worked for me, and this is just my process, okay? So I'll give it a little heat with the heat gun just to evaporate any more that's left over. Okay, and my favorite all-time glue is this AK Black Widow. I also really like the BSI IC2000. These two glues I found hold up the best in real world testing. You know, I've used the clear stuff as well, but I prefer the stuff with the rubber compound in them. I find that they grip the best. I have to glue less when I use that glue. Let's just put it that way. All right. So one thing I also use is you can get these little CA glue tips, and I know some CA glue glues have a metal needle on them. You want to shake up your CA glue very well, guys. And you might be watching me do this going, this is so wrong, it's totally wrong, but it's worked for me, and this is the way I do it, okay? Most of you guys know this action, right? All right, give your glue a good shaking. Now you can get about 1,000 of these little plastic nozzles for about 10 bucks, okay? And they're one-time use only. You just, you know, you put them on the end of your CA glue, they stretch over, and then what the beauty of it is, you can, depending on how fine of a repair you're gonna do, you can cut your different thickness depending on how fine you need the needle to be, the tip to be on this, okay? So I'm gonna cut it about there. I don't want a ton of flow. And you don't need to use a ton of glue. This is a big rip, so I am going to put a bit in here. But generally, you don't need a ton of glue. This is probably going to rip again. This tire is probably going to shred. I'm just going to glue it to get another use out of it and just show you how I kind of do it, right? So basically, we're going to go in here. We've cleaned it with the ISO. We've blown it out with the air compressor. We've hit it with the heat gun to evaporate any more fluid that's left there. And now we're going to do this. So I have my wet microfiber that's soaked with alcohol. Then I have one that's dry that I use to wipe any excess CA glue off, okay? So here we go. Now we're just gonna squeeze some glue in. You can see it coming down the chute there. And just get it into the full crack of the tire until it pushes out like that. This is a pretty big rip in these guys. I've done this to about 3 of these DeBoots. They are soft, but they do handle awesome, and they're definitely a fun tire. Definitely enjoy running these, so it's worth the pain. So we're gonna do that right there like that. We're gonna put a little bit of pressure on it, and we're just gonna wipe off a little excess glue with this extra microfiber. Now we're gonna hit it with a little bit of Insta-Set, okay? Hold it for a few seconds. Let it set up. And then we're definitely not going to run these because this is a very bad rip. We're not going to run these for a good 24 hours. This one's going to need another little bit of glue. This little piece sticking out here. And we're just going to glue that back in. Just because of the condition of this one. You're not going to want to put your finger in that, so this will stick to your fingers. So I'm just going to push this little piece of rubber down in there. Now, like I said, this tire is probably not going to hold up. I might get a one bash session out of it, but we'll see. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's give it another wet, and that's it. That's it for this one. Now, what I'll generally do when I'm looking for beads, bead breaks, is just kind of go around the tire and gently push out on the wheel, outward on the wheel. Not too hard, not enough to break a bead, but just enough to see if there's any cracks there, okay? We're gonna set this one aside. I'm gonna grab another two. The process is gonna be the same for any tire, you guys. So I check both sides of the wheel. I'll do it on the back. This one's pretty dirty because I was just out bashing. I didn't clean the inside of it out. And I'll check the front the same way. And I'll just go around the tire slowly to see if there's any bead breaks. Not on this one, any rips. You just kind of push the tire to see if there's any rips in it. This one's good. Seems to be pretty good. Let's check this one here. Okay, so you have a little bit of a break in the bead there. Now, even though that's small, that'll turn into a big break if you're spinning the wheels really hard on a big flip. And there's a little bit of a break there, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing we did before. We're just gonna make sure this is nice and wet with the alcohol. I'm gonna find that rip. There's one right here. We're gonna just get a good scrub in there. Get the toothbrush in there. Now you can do it with the file as well if you want to. If you can fit the file in there. You don't really want to do it too much because you don't want to break more of the bead. But if it's really loose and it comes off, it needs to be glued anyway. So I just kind of go in there, rough it up a little bit. Go around the tire, see if you find any more breaks. And if there is, you're gonna fix them, right? So there's a little bit of a break here. It's starting to come off, but it's not bad yet. So I am gonna glue that. I'm just gonna give it a quick wipe. There we go. And go around. You don't have to be as finicky as I'm being either, you guys. Like, I just, you know, the less problems I have in the field, the more playtime I have. So I just like to make sure that I can button up as much stuff as I can before I head out. So I'm just gonna hit it lightly with the heat gun here. Try not to burn my fingers too much. You don't want to melt it, you know, melt your wheels, but you want to make sure it's dry, okay? That's the main part. Just kind of push down. You want the rubber to go back to that flat kind of color. If it's shiny, it's not good. Obviously, don't poke holes in your rubber, but let's see. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Let's find that place where we knocked the bead loose. Yeah, right there. See, it's nice and flat looking, so it's good to be glued. I didn't air compress this one because it wasn't too dirty. So now we're just going to squeeze some CA glue in there like we did with the nozzle. And then we're going to grab our dry rag, give it a light wipe, just lightly. Going to hit it with a little Insta-Set and then wipe off the Insta-Set, okay? That's the way I done it, and it works quite well. Now you're not going to want to push out on that. Let that set up overnight. You know, it's really important to, when you glue your tires, to let the CA cure, guys. A lot of guys rush this, and rushing the CA is no good because it'll just come undone when you don't want it to. Now I'm just going to throw some in here, just going to start to come up a bit. Then we're just going to throw a little bit of bead in. What's nice about this black stuff is it doesn't show up too easily. It kind of blends with the tire, and I'm messy when I glue, so you can it's a little bit more forgiving for me. So we're just gonna leave it like that. Give it a little wipe here. Try not to make a huge mess of it, right? Okay, so that one's done. Just gonna very gently, don't push where you glued because it will pop until it's cured. One little spot right here. Let's give it a little wipe with this ISO again. And this is not coming apart too bad. Some tires come apart way worse than this, right? This is just a very mild example of, you know, what can happen. Obviously, you guys know if you're watching this. So I'm just going to throw a little bit in here so we don't get a break when we run these tomorrow. And I love these nozzles, guys. Like I said, I'll try to find the link for you guys to put it in what they're called, but basically I think I just searched CA glue nozzles on Amazon, and that's what I found. And I have them on every glue container. They're so handy, and it also keeps your glue tip lasting a little longer. After you get down to below halfway on a CA bottle, as most of you know, this stuff gets pretty shitty and cruddy up here, even if you try to keep it clean. Once you start getting glue in the lid, it just starts making a mess of everything. So these are one-time use. After you're done, you just take them off, toss them out, and then you use a new one next time, give it a wipe, and that's it. Now I want to show you one other quick thing. I modified one of my tire tools, and we're just going to throw this on the truck right now. So what's cool about this is normally this has just a wide handle on it. I used a dog bone from one of my XMAXX, and I just put it through here. So I can get this off. That's just a modified dog bone. There was a pin sticking through this one on that side, but basically I did that, and then I stuck a screw in with some rubber around it. And what's cool about that is I hate having it when it's big and bulky, you're trying to turn it in the field. So what this allows you to do is turn it really quickly when you're just on the loose part of the tire tightening, and then you give it a good torque down. So it makes it really fast when you're taking tires off or putting them on. So it's quite handy. And I have a smaller one for the stock rigs as well that's very similar. And then I also incorporated a little nut wrench in there as well. So when I'm working on my captured pins, I can use it for that as well. So that's my my tire review and tire repairing session. You know, please stay tuned. I got a couple more videos dropping the next few days, guys. Hope you liked it. Please leave your comments and let me know what you think, or if you have any other suggestions. Love you guys. Peace out. Timmy Super Crash. I'm out.